Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hamburger.
That looked good.
Looks good. It's just...
I burped. That's not going out over the air. Maybe I will make it go out over the air just to embarrass you further.
I'm not embarrassed.
Welcome. You're about to be. Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator for the evening as usual. And if you're watching on the YouTube that you might have gotten to by the Google, or you just type in YouTube. Old people like to say, I found it on the Google. But they put the Google or the YouTube.
The internet.
Well, that makes sense. Okay, Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator for the evening. You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio. In the studio tonight, I have who you may more popularly know as Jack's cat mama, Sarah.
We're going to talk about that, by the way.
Why? Are we going to address...
I feel like I need to defend him. He is not able to defend himself because you talk about him.
Because his legs are broken.
He only has one broken leg and it has healed.
Okay.
But he's a good cat sometimes.
No. Well.
Sometimes.
Okay, well, I originally didn't want to start off talking about Jack, but that's fine. We need to adjust it because I talk about him. Yeah, I talk about him every show because he's an ongoing paradox. Not even a paradox. He's just messed up.
He is special.
He's a very special cat.
In my heart.
I will not dog on him too much because he is a cat.
But he's entertaining.
He is entertaining.
He plays fetch with himself.
What noise does he make in the middle of the night when he's licking his parts?
We don't need to, no. Don't subject your listeners to that.
That's Sarah's favorite sound in the entire universe.
It's not. It's horrible.
Okay, well, anyways, what did I want to talk about? Oh, yeah, before
Who am I?
You're Sarah. I'm not going to say your last name. You can say your last name if you want to, if you want people stalking you, because you're about to go on the webs and on the radios and making all these cute faces, and people might email you, hey baby. She's taken, by the way.
Taken.
I don't know by who, but she's taken. She's got a boyfriend. Maybe it's me.
Maybe.
Anyway, before the segment started, what time is it? We were looking at, I showed her a video on YouTube of the new, is it even new? It's still new at this point, the Bugatti Chiron. Everyone knows what the Bugatti Veyron is. And a lot of people have probably seen the video of the guy driving the Bugatti Veyron into the Galveston Bay on accident, like at 100 miles an hour.
No.
Idiot. Anyways, Bugatti Chiron, which is just even faster than the Veyron, still 16-cylinder, quad turbo, whatever, I believe. But I don't even know the specs, 1,200 horsepower. Off the top of my head, I'm saying that's probably pretty close. That is nuts. How much air this thing sucks in to combust in the engine is mind-boggling. It's something like it could suck all the air out of a football stadium in, a minute or two. Maybe not quite that fast, but it sucks a lot of air. That's a lot of turbos. That's a lot of cylinders needing to fire. Anyways, I was showing her the video of the Chiron doing 0 to 400 kilometers an hour to 0 in 42 seconds. At first, when I first saw this video last week or earlier this week, I thought, 0 to 400 in 42 seconds. That's amazing. What's 400 kilometers an hour? Like 250 something miles per hour? I don't know how it all works out, but I think that's kind of close. I thought it was a 0 to 400 kilometers an hour in 42 seconds. I was like, that's amazing. No, it's 0 to 400 back to 0 in 42 seconds. So Sarah was like, what's the point of this? Who needs this? Who's going to like someone who buys this car for $5 million, $6 million, I don't even know how much it costs. Who's going to buy it and then do it? Like, you're not going to be going down 59 in going 400
I
kilometers
hope
an
not.
hour. You can't. First of all, even to unlock that ability in that car, there's a series. There's separate keys that you have to put into different locations to basically unlock the full potential of the engine. And the car hunkers down real low, and the brakes do what they're going to do. The suspension does all its thing, but you need multiple keys to unlock the ability to go that fast in the first place. Like, you can't just put the key in the ignition or just start the car wirelessly with your wireless key fob nowadays and just be able to go 400.
So why? Like, why go through all of that? What is the point?
My argument, in which I believe is probably correct, is that it's just a technical demonstration of the state of the art. And long story short, I'm not telling you this, Sarah, directly to your face. I'm telling listeners what the point is.
Okay.
Because technology in that car that's able to make it go 0 to 400 to 0 in 42 seconds will trickle down to cars that we can use as consumers. And I said in that video, the main point of that video wasn't just that the car could go 400 kilometers an hour. It's that it could stop safely, quickly from 400 kilometers an hour without the brakes failing, without the car locking the tires and veering off the road and crashing and killing everybody. So the technology in that multi-million-dollar car's ability to stop from 400 trickles down to Jemima, to Sarah's Jetta. The technology in those brakes from that demonstration will trickle down to make everybody's car safer. Not just Volkswagen. If people don't realize, Volkswagen owns Bugatti, but all cars. If you can stop a car from 400 kilometers an hour to 0 safely, straight as an arrow.
How long did it take? I didn't notice for it to get
stop.
down to 0. Yeah.
I have to go back and watch it. It wasn't the most of the time. Obviously, was taken to accelerate up to 400, and then it took almost no time to go down to 400. It still took longer than the national highway standard of like 120 feet.
Right.
It took way longer than 120 feet to stop from going 250 miles an hour, but it was very quick. And of course, it's not just the brakes. The air brake came out. The spoiler, which I believe in high speed mode, straight line high speed mode, one of the things that one of those multiple keys unlocks is that the spoiler won't come up, or maybe it only comes up a few centimeters just to keep the tires sticking to the road, the downforce. But you can't go maximum speed with a spoiler sticking up, planting you to the road, because it's drag, it's air resistance. So that spoiler, it looked like in the video, was just flat and level. It wasn't deployed until he put the brakes on, and it just went like 90 degrees vertical into the wind. Mm-hmm. That's probably not coming to a Jetta.
No.
That's probably going to be reserved for, hypercars. Actually, yeah. There isn't. I know some cars have active spoilers on there that come up at somewhere at like 65, 70 miles an hour. The point is, if you're a cop and you see a car driving along with the active spoiler up, they are speeding. They're definitely speeding. If that spoiler has gone up automatically, it means they're going above a certain speed. So you can pull them over with beyond reasonable doubt that they're going faster than 60 miles an hour.
Fascinating.
Sarah's car has a little bit of a dented hood, and the emblem is
It
popped
makes
up.
me so sad. It was my fault. I can't blame anyone but myself.
But all I'm getting at is the mind-boggling thing is she got a quote to fix it, and it's just cosmetic. This has nothing to do with the safety of the vehicle or how the car drives at all. It's just that the hood is a little bent up and the emblem's gone. Did you take it to the dealership to get the quote? Yeah, they said $5,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's absolutely absurd.
I don't know what exactly they were saying needed to be done.
Probably more than just a hood, because now that I think of it, just a new hood does not cost $5,000. It might be like $1,200,
right?
And even that's on the high end, because a Volkswagen and German cars always cost more for maintenance and parts, but not always. Funny story. Funny side note.
Please.
Geeks.
Tell us.
Geeks who are semi-interested in vehicles. I used to have a Jetta, an '05 diesel Jetta. It was awesome. Got awesome gas mileage. And my passenger air vent broke. Like the air conditioner, it's just a plastic louvers, plastic adjustable vent. And they break sometimes. Somebody in there, they just broke it. So I was like, okay, I'll just order another one. How much could it possibly be? I was thinking $50 for this plastic part in the Jetta, an '05 Jetta that's over 10 years old. May have been an '04. Anyways, the plastic part for the vent was like $90, almost $100. And I didn't get it because I was like, that's still just, I can live with it not blowing exactly where I want it to go.
Your passengers.
The passenger.
Can
Yeah, it
deal
wasn't
with
me. Yeah, Sarah could get in the car. I don't care if she has comfort, but me, it didn't. It was no sweat off my back, literally. So I just didn't replace the part. So curiously, in the vehicle I drive now, which is higher end than the Jetta was, I looked at the same the air vent was also, well, I was curious, what is the passenger air vent in this car, which is just a upscale Volkswagen, basically. A car that cost initially 2, 3, or 4 times as much as that Jetta did, brand new. I did not buy it brand new, but just comparable. A car that cost 4 times as much. I was guessing that the AC vent was going to cost, 4 times as much as $90. No. The AC vent in this higher end vehicle was like half the price. It cost half as much. It's like, why is the piece of crap Jetta's AC vent $90 in the AC vent in this car, which is cost 4 times as much as the Jetta, costs like $45? Why? It comes from the same manufacturer. It's not the same part. It's even the AC vent in this car was designed more attractively, I guess. It had more of a modern shape to it, whereas in the Jetta it was just a square $90. That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
That's redonk. All right. Well, that's the end of the first segment of Geek Therapy Radio. We covered some bases. We cleared the air on Sarah's nonsensical cat.
He
His name is
just
Jack.
deserves to have a voice. And I'm giving one to him.
He also deserves a kitty treadmill.
Yeah, he does. That's true. He is fat. I'll give you that.
Yeah. And you don't even feed him. You give him like 2 bits of kibble a day.
Let's discuss this really quick.
Okay.
He has a food allergy, and I have to feed him this certain kind of food, and that particular food is high in calories, and so it doesn't really matter how much I feed him. He still gets overweight.
There must be fat content in oxygen because he breathes and he just gets fat.
Okay.
So it's crazy.
Well, that's the end of the first segment. So.
Yeah, Sarah's the host now. That's the end of the first segment of Geek Therapy Radio for this week. We'll be right back with more GTR. Go find Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube so you can see Sarah's beautiful face. I have a feeling that this video is going to get more hits simply because there's a woman's face on the thumbnail. So Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube, Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. Go like the page. Geek Therapy Radio on the Insta.
Oh, boy. Oh, okay.
Instagram. That's it. We'll be right back. More GTR. Stick around. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm still your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. And wasn't Sarah a delight? It's nice to get a female voice on my show for the first time. And she did wonderfully. So, golf clap for Sarah. So, let's get into more geeky stuff. More scientifically oriented geeky things. Not that the Bugatti Chiron going from 0 to 400 kilometers an hour to 0 in 42 seconds wasn't geeky and sciencey. There is more science involved in that than you can possibly shake a stick at. But in mere moments, as I'm recording this show, and I'll let you behind the veil a little bit. I'm recording this show Thursday, September 15th. Yeah, Thursday, September 15th. It is 2:09 a.m. Central Time. At 4:55 a.m. Pacific Time, so about 2 hours, or no. Sorry, what I'm saying is in just moments from now, 30 minutes or so from now, 35 minutes or so from now, Cassini, our spacecraft that has been orbiting Saturn for the past 13 years, Cassini will plunge to its death in the Saturnian atmosphere. It has been orbiting Saturn for the past 13 years or so, taking pictures of the moons, exploring the rings of Saturn. And if you haven't seen the recent photos over the past few months that Cassini has been sending us from Saturn of its rings, they are truly astounding. The past year or so for space exploration has been just, I'm going to use one of my favorite words, titillating. We've sent back images from Pluto, the most detailed images of Pluto, obviously, that we have ever seen, because all we've been able to see Pluto with before is our telescopes. And even through the Hubble Space Telescope, Pluto is just a speck. We think Hubble telescope is just this supremely powerful telescope we have orbiting the Earth, and it is. It very much so is. But even with that, am I saying microscope or telescope? I'm having a Steve Brule moment. Telescope, even though the Hubble telescope is one of the most powerful telescopes we have, certainly the most powerful we have orbiting our planet, Pluto still is just a few pixels. Pluto is not very big at all. So the fact that we've been able to fly by Pluto and get the most detailed images is spectacular. And the fact that Cassini has been spending such detailed images of Saturn and Saturn's moons and Saturn's rings, all of this within the past year or two. We've got, even though it's longer than a couple years ago, which is crazy to think, we have our rover there on Mars. We have robots on Mars. Have you thought about that in the past year even? Have you thought about the fact that we have a lonely old robot sitting there, the size of a Volkswagen, rolling around Mars, still sending us amazing data and amazing pictures? But back to Cassini. In mere moments from now, it will end its 13-year mission when it is destroyed in the Saturnian atmosphere. And I'm going to read a little excerpt of what's going to happen as Cassini enters the atmosphere of Saturn. And it's kind of sad, it's kind of sad, especially if you are one of the people, men and women, working on that mission. This is literally the end of an era. It's a 20-year mission. So this we sent Cassini up in 1997, thereabouts, and it's running out of propellants and nuclear power. So the reason why NASA is purposefully destroying Cassini in this manner is they don't want it to crash into any of the possibly habitable moons of Saturn. So instead of contaminating it with any Earth microbes, they're going to send it to burn alive in Saturn and be incinerated. And we can't live on Saturn. We will never be able to live on Saturn. Saturn is not habitable. We are not habitable. we are not going to be able to live on Saturn. So let's have a controlled demolition of the spacecraft into Saturn. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to read this directly from newatlas.com and their editorial about Cassini and the final moments of Cassini. So I'm going to start reading it as of now. This is how NASA outlines the final moments of Cassini. So, quote, in an outline of Friday's event, NASA says that Cassini will enter the Saturnian atmosphere at 7:54 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 4:54 a.m. Whatever time. In fact, this will be the time that the radio signals reach mission control from Saturn, a trip that takes 83 minutes at the speed of light. However, signal reception is generally used to mark mission times to avoid confusion. The space agency says that Cassini's final transmissions will be picked up at NASA's Deep Space Network complex in Canberra, Australia. There's a typo there. As Cassini approaches Saturn over the next few days, it will take its final images of the planet and its moons. It will then make a final dump of its entire memory in a download to mission control before reconfiguring itself to send all its science data and telemetry live. Unfortunately, Cassini's cameras will shut down on Thursday, so there will be no live images of its final moments. However, 8 of Cassini's 12 science experiments will continue to run until the last second, gathering never-before-seen data about Saturn's atmosphere. According to NASA, when Cassini hits the atmosphere at about local noon, 10 degrees north of the Saturnian equator, it will be traveling at about 70,000 miles per hour, 113,000 kilometers an hour, and accelerating. As the air becomes thicker and drag increases, the probe will use its thrusters to remain stable and keep its main antenna pointed at Earth, increasing the thrust from 10% to 100%. After the thrusters reach maximum, Cassini will no longer be able to control its attitude and will begin to tumble. When the antenna shifts a fraction of a degree, contact with Earth will be lost and the probe will start to break up about 930 miles, 1,500 kilometers above Saturn's cloud tops. It will then burn up like a meteor in about 2 minutes while still hundreds of miles above the clouds. The spacecraft's final signal will be like an echo, says Earl Mays, Cassini project manager at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. It will radiate across the solar system for nearly an hour and a half after Cassini itself has gone. Even though we'll know that at Saturn, Cassini has already met its fate. Its mission isn't truly over for us on Earth as long as we're still receiving its signal. End quote from newatlas.com. That is a harrowing account of what's going to happen to the Cassini probe in just mere moments from now as I record this episode of Geek Therapy, September 15th, 2017 at 2:16 local time. When you hear the show, that will vary. I know that this weekend I'm getting preempted by U of H football, so this show will likely not air over the radio, but it's going to be on the iHeartRadio app. Just go to listen to KPRC on the iHeartRadio app, KPRC 950, and you'll find it. But of course, it's being uploaded to YouTube, and you can see it on YouTube. Just search Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube. While you're at it, you can go to geektherapyradio.com, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram, and Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. Basically, if you just go to Google and type in Geek Therapy Radio, you will find the show everywhere. So go to Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook and like it. Go to Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube and subscribe. Start following Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. And go visit geektherapyradio.com to get in touch with me, basically. About Cassini, I've been excited about this and I have nothing to do with mission control of Cassini. Let's get that straight. Of course, I'm just some guy on the radio. But it's kind of sad, especially over the past 2 years with the amount of data that Cassini has been sending us. It's a little sad to see it go. And as of now, I am unaware of any more missions to explore Saturn. We've just explored Jupiter in depth. Like I said earlier, we've just explored Pluto in depth, which is symbolically still planet number 9. Represent. It's not a planet. It doesn't. Neil Tyson's right. It does not classify as a planet in the popular sense. It's too small. Its orbit is too irregular. It's too far out. 8 planets. And if you want to get all tinfoil hat, Planet X, Nibiru. You know, I'll just say this. I had a caller call in during Hurricane Harvey, while we're trying to save lives, basically saying that Hurricane Harvey was caused by planet Nibiru making a close pass to Earth. And then he claimed that I was a lizard person who ate human souls, and I got my sustenance and my life force off of humans. So just can't avoid it. That's what happens when you have to leave your phones open at KTRH in the middle of the night. You get the coast to coast callers, which is fine. Coast to Coast is a wonderful show. It's just, in the context of what we were doing during the hurricane, to speculate that a dark, unobservable planet coursing through our solar system caused Hurricane Harvey. And if that wasn't enough to say that I was a lizard person who feeds off of normal, good humans, that's kind of out of context, kind of unnecessary during crisis mode. If I'm a lizard person feeding off of humans, let's bring that up at another time, not during critical news coverage. He did want to go help out that guy at the Lexus dealership, bring him food. This caller wanted to bring food to a guy who is stuck at a Lexus dealership all by himself. That's good. I encouraged that. I said, hey, no matter what you think of me, that I'm a lizard person or have anything to do with planet Nibiru, the one actual functional practical thought that you've had right now in the past 2 minutes is to bring some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to a guy who's stranded at a car dealership. Go with that third thing. Run with that third thing where you help another human being out. With that, that's the end of this segment for Geek Therapy Radio. I'll see you in a few minutes after a couple commercials, and we'll be right back with more GTR. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator. Stick around. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator, as always, and I've gone long enough in this show without talking about it. Here we are in segment 3 of Geek Therapy Radio, and I'm finally going to talk about what probably a lot of you have been waiting for me to talk about this show. That is the new iPhone. More specifically, all 3 of the new iPhones, because it's not just the iPhone X that they've released, or the iPhone 10. I think it's called the iPhone X. I really don't care. The iPhone X and the iPhone 8 and iPhone 8 Plus. Where did the 9 go? I don't know. Why didn't they call it the iPhone 8, 9, and X, or 8, 9, and 10? Don't know. Why did Windows go from Windows 8 to Windows 10? I don't know. 7, 8, 10, whatever. I mean, I do know. What I heard was that going from Windows 8 and then calling it using another 9 in there would have thrown off the code from people using Windows 98 or some code that was written for Windows 98. I don't know. I think it was bull malarkey. But anyways, Windows 8 and Windows 10. So iPhone just released 2 iPhone 8s and an iPhone 10 or an iPhone X all at the same time. I'll go into the specs a little bit about the iPhone X, because the iPhone 8, roughly the same internals, but what's really going on with the iPhone X is the screen. That's what you're paying for. Let me tell you what you're paying. Let me tell you the dollar amount. $999 US. $1,000 for the iPhone. That is just arrogant. And let me tell you why it's arrogant. First, let's get into the specs. It's a 5.8-inch display that goes from top to bottom, almost bezel-less, and there's a kind of a tiny little notch cut out from the top of the screen. That's where they put the front-facing cameras and sensors. It's got the new... I got the hiccups now. Uh-oh. Anyways, the resolution 2436 by 1125, and support for HDR and Dolby Vision. Like I said, that's where your money's going, is for that display. And let's see, the chip, I think it's got the new, what is it? The new A11 Bionic chip. Now it's got dual lenses, dual 12 megapixel cameras, blah, blah, blah. It unlocks the phone with your face now. It's got the Face ID system, which basically, instead of using your fingerprint or your thumbprint, which you can't do on the iPhone X because there is no button on it anymore. There's no home button, which is stupid. Let me get right in the microphone. That's stupid. Android phones are not blameless for this. There's a few phones that have gotten rid of physical home buttons, which I will never buy a phone like that ever. At least let me have a physical home button. Anyways, the A11 Bionic chip and some extra camera stuff that will support augmented reality. And this is all coming with iOS 11. For the first time ever, you get wireless charging. And the new iPhone 10, although it was kind of hard for me to find this out. It's IP67 rated, so it's water resistant up to 1 meter, and dust resistant also. Big deal. Here's all I'm getting at saying. Here is, if you've been able to detect a tone of bewilderment in my voice, a tone of patronizing, a tone of being just disconcerted with it all, with Apple. I haven't had an Apple since I had a 4S, an iPhone 4S, and I used that recently because my Android died, my Note 3 died, and I needed a phone that was actually that A, supported 4G, and B, could actually text relatively quickly. And in that regard, it was great. The screen is tiny compared to the phones we're used to now. But iPhone 4S served its purpose. It was very good. Here's what gets me, and has gotten me for the past few years about iPhones, and I will use the iPhone X as the prime example. Here's my purchasing advice, my consumer advice if you want an iPhone X. If you want an iPhone X, buy an Android 5 years ago. Drop the mic. I shouldn't have done that. If you want an iPhone X, buy any Android phone a few years ago, specifically a Samsung. Wireless charging, are you kidding me? Why did it take this long for iPhone to adopt that? What is going on at Apple? That is dumb. Water resistant ratings. Why did that take so long for Apple to adopt? You're paying basically $1,000 to look like a jackass. And I know some people that I love near and dear are probably going to wait in line for hours to buy a new iPhone X. Not to mention the new Apple Watches, the third generation of Apple Watches coming out, which you can use independent of the phone. It has cellular antennas built into it, so you can have 4G or whatever on the go. You can make calls with your watch, do all that kind of stuff. You don't need your phone. That's neat. Okay, the watch is probably only going to last for 18 hours again. What is the point of a watch that doesn't have all-day battery life, at least? Anyways, back to the iPhone X. there are quite a few Apple users that are jumping ship on this one, and I don't blame them. Ever since Steve Jobs died, the sheer arrogance and greed that has been occurring at Apple has been unprecedented. I'm not saying that Steve Jobs is a great man. I'm not saying he wasn't greedy. He certainly didn't do a lot of philanthropy, if any at all. He was a well-known jackass, a well-known horrible person, a well-known lunatic. But he was an innovator. He was very good at pushing people and pushing the company to innovate, to offer new products that nobody offered. The iPod, the iPhone, no one ever did that. That was unthinkable. No one had ever envisioned something like that. Steve Jobs did, and he was brilliant in that regard. He was a brilliant marketer and brilliant, I'm not even going to say designer because he didn't design anything. He didn't engineer anything. He didn't engineer anything even since Atari, and arguably he didn't do much engineering over there. Steve Wozniak did all the grunt work for him at Atari and Apple or Macintosh. So Apple, a lot of Apple fanboys and girls are jumping ship here with the iPhone X. $1,000 to do things, augmented reality, wireless charging, water resistance, still no earphone jack. Still no earphone jack. Dumb. That was the first sign of arrogance from Apple. I think that the board members sit around a table and they say, how, forgive my French here, if you're British especially, how can we take a piss out of the consumer? How can we insult the consumer and still have them pay almost $1,000 for our products? We'll take away the earphone jack and we'll call it being brave. Give me a break. Apple taking away the earphone jack was just a giant middle finger, which I'm not going to do right here because I'm video recording. It's a giant middle finger to the consumer. Some greedy, arrogant prick, I'll say, at Apple said, let's get rid of the headphone jack. Another guy probably said, no, the consumer's going to be too smart. They'll see through it. And the guy said, I'll bet you $100,000 people will still line up around the street if we take away the earphone jack. And that's exactly what they did, and that's exactly what happened. The iPhone X takes that a step further in offering technology 5 years behind what Android has had and charging way more money than Android. Now, again, I won't say that Android devices are completely innocent of this. The new Galaxy Note 8 cost almost $1,000. It's over $900. Ridiculous. I love my Galaxy Note 4. Love it. I love it to death. It is a great phone. And I'm sure the Note 8 is a great phone, but that's the only problem with the Note 8. The Note 8's only Achilles heel, the only downside, the only negative from the Galaxy Note 8 is just the price. Everything else about the Galaxy Note 8 is bleeding edge, leads the pack, which brings me back to Apple. Apple has stopped innovating. Apple used to be innovators. Steve Jobs was an innovator. Apple has stopped innovating. Apple has started following. Apple was supposed to innovate. Now they follow, and they're expecting you to pay $1,000 for their new flagship phone. You used to buy Apple iPhones because you wanted to be ahead of the pack. You wanted to be trendy. You wanted to be on the cutting edge. Now you are a sheep. And I'm not just saying that. I'm not an Android fanboy. I just prefer Android because I do not like the business practices of Apple anymore. Plus, you can do a lot more stuff with Android. That's being a geek. If you're like a true nitty-gritty emulator playing geek, you got to go Android. The folks at Apple are laughing at you. They're laughing at the consumers. In this iPhone X is the most arrogant that Apple has ever been since Steve Jobs died, or even when Steve Jobs was alive. It is insulting. The iPhone X is insulting, and you as a consumer should be insulted that you're going to pay $1,000 for something Android has been doing several years ago. Be insulted. How do you really feel, Johnny? Well, let me tell you. I'm just kidding. That's the end of the segment. I went on my full tirade, my full rant. Let's see if Apple sponsors me. Let's see if Apple sends me an iPhone X. I will welcome it. I will use an Apple iPhone X objectively, and I will try to, and I would see if it's just a good phone. I will praise iOS for being simple and easy to use compared to Android. I mean, Android's easy for me because I'm used to it, but like any idiot can pick up an iPhone, be able to make calls, be able to make texts. It's very simple like that, and a lot of people like that, and that is a good plus for iPhones. They have always been very user-friendly. They want to know everything about you. They want your fingerprint. They want your all your credit card information. They want to know everything about you. And you, as far as I know, you still cannot turn off the GPS. You can set the GPS to come on only for certain apps, but at least in Android, you can turn off the GPS altogether. As far as I know, and I haven't used an iPhone in a while, you cannot turn off GPS. Apple knows where you are to within 3 feet. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Apple knows where you are. Now, you might think, oh, that's pretty scary. It's not scary. It's just to sell you stuff. It's just to tell you that Target is 5 miles away and they have something that you were on Amazon looking for. That's all they're using the GPS for. It's nothing more shady than that. It's just to individualize advertising to you. That's all it's for. There's no tinfoil hat conspiracy going on there. And guess what? We are all too happy to pay for the privilege of having Apple know exactly where we are 24/7, 365 days a year. And maybe that's how I really feel. Johnny, how do you feel? I just told you. Just spent the last 13 minutes telling you how I feel about that. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Obviously, segment 4 is going to be a lot shorter because I chewed up so much time with this segment going off. Apple's arrogance cannot be tolerated any longer. That said, Apple, if you're listening, send me an iPhone X. I'll use it objectively. Sway me, swoon me. But I'm not bowing down to you. If there's nothing good about the Apple iPhone X, I'm going to say that. So you better be damn sure of your product. You better be proud of it. But I know you aren't. I know you're laughing like Jekylls, counting your money, crying, blowing your nose into $100 bills. You're never going to sponsor the show. Not after that tirade. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. I'm Johnny Hamburger, Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube. See the veins bulging out of my forehead. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. Go like, follow, subscribe, all of that stuff. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up in just a couple minutes. Short segment, remember.
I got you stuck off the realness. We be the infamous. We be the infamous.
Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I am Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator, and this is going to be a short segment, about 4 or 5 minutes, because I've chewed up that last segment when I went off on the iPhone and Apple. Oh, that was 15 minutes of therapy. We talk about geek therapy. That was 15 minutes of just euphoric geek therapy. And aptly so, because this is Geek Therapy Radio. So Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio YouTube, Geek Therapy Radio Instagram. I have to keep barking those out. Go follow, subscribe, and like. So like the Facebook, subscribe to the YouTube, follow the Instagram, Geek Therapy Radio, and geektherapyradio.com. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me. And I'll shoot out the email too, geektherapyradio@iheartmedia.com, geektherapyradio@iheartmedia.com. I think that email was wrong. Either way, try it and see what happens. I think it's just geektherapy@iheart media.com. Yeah, so a short segment. SpaceX has released probably the most expensive blooper reel of all time. It's basically 2 minutes of failed Falcon 9 landings. And it is explosive, to say the least. It is amazing. And the most amazing part about it isn't the eye candy of watching all these rockets just explode. Most of them are self-detonated. There's one where the not the fuel pump. What is it? The throttle valve. What is it? Where is it? There's an engine sensor failure when it's a few hundred feet up in the air, and it tilts over and explodes. That's intentionally detonated. So a lot of these crashes, a lot of these explosions are intentionally detonated, which you need to intentionally detonate a rocket that's gone awry. You cannot have the rocket going willy-nilly into someone's neighborhood for obvious reasons. So go check it out, the SpaceX blooper reel. What's amazing about that to me, the most amazing thing is that Elon Musk and SpaceX have a sense of humor. The whole video is just poking fun at themselves. But without failure, there is no progress. So kudos. It's a really good video. I'll probably link it in the description of this YouTube video. Anyways, they've started to make bicycles out of wooden bikes made from whiskey casks. So if you love mountain biking and like getting drunk, go ride your whiskey bike around. That's all I got to say about that. Maybe when it rains, you'll find some thirsty lushes licking the frame of their bike, trying to get that last drop of whiskey out of there. All they're probably going to get is a whole tongue full of varnish. Maybe if you're alcoholic, you want a mouthful of varnish. Don't do that. Disclaimer: Johnny Hamburger does not endorse licking varnish off of anything. Don't do that. Don't win a Darwin Award, because you'll probably die. Let's just get that out of the way. And the last little tidbit from space, I know I just talked about Cassini. In the past week or so, we have had the largest solar flares in the past 12 years. And this is a quiet time for the sun. So this is a quiet time in terms of sunspots and solar flares, yet we just had one of the most powerful solar flares, or the most powerful solar flare in the past 12 years. And I'd believe it, not only because there's evidence and you can see the data right freaking there in front of you, but I've had a few of my electronical devices, go on the fritz on me. And I've probably mentioned before in the show that sometimes when your phone goes haywire, or your computer or your laptop is acting funky, or blue screens of death out of nowhere, or freezes, or glitches out, it is a very real possibility that it is getting bombarded with particles from the sun, from one of these solar flares. They knock out antennas all the time. Your DirecTV, all that kind of stuff, it knocks that stuff out routinely. Here at the radio station, we use a lot of satellite dishes and stuff. And in the spring and fall, I believe, we go through these outages times where the sun wreaks havoc on our satellites. So the fact that it messes with your phone, there are particles, nanoparticles flying through your phone and through the processor of your computer and your phone and any electronic device that mess with the bits, mess with the data going through it. The ones and zeros, it'll flip a 0 to a 1 or a 1 to a 0, and doing that just with one bit of data throws everything off. Usually data has to be perfect. So you can actually have particles from the sun throwing off the data that's going through the processor of your device and making things act funny. And on that note, that's the end of Geek Therapy Radio for this week. I've been Johnny Hamburger. I still am Johnny Hamburger. I'll be Johnny Hamburger when I turn off this mic. Thank you for joining me. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube to go watch all these episodes, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram, and geektherapyradio.com. Go hit up all that stuff. I love you. Be good to each other. My city, Houston, has been so great after Hurricane Harvey, setting an example for the world in brotherhood and humility and humanity. So thank you, Houston, for being so great. See my Street Fighter 2 sweater. It is technically the summertime, but it's cold in the studio. I love you, geeks. I love you, my geeks. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. Love yourself. Do something good for yourself. Spend 5 minutes this week on your hobby. Just 5 minutes doing your hobby. If you like playing video games, haven't played video games in a while, play a video game. So, treat each other well. Love yourself, love each other. Thank you so much. I'm Johnny Hamburger. Tune in next week for more Geek Therapy Radio.